Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Welcome to the last part of this conference. We're going to start it out with Peter Booth, and he's going to be sharing with us some of his knowledge of Hafiz and the supremacy of the Avatar. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Jai Baba. Thank you. Jai Baba. So this is entitled Sufi Orders, Murshids, Hypocrites, Rens, spelled R-E-N-D-S. That does not have an exact English translation. Dervishes and the Supremacy of the Avatar. Hafiz was a Sufi. In fact, Meher Baba called him the true Sufi. So if we want to arrive at an understanding of the poetic essence of Sufism, that is the poetic essence of God, we will find it in a close reading of Hafiz's poetry. Indeed, reading Hafiz closely reveals that he is the perfect poetic tongue of God, crafted by God himself to speak for him and to speak of the mysteries hidden deep within God's being. To begin with, in dealing with the absolute as Hafiz does, it is often helpful, as it is impossible to say what the absolute is, to mention what it is not. That is, in the Sufism expressed in Hafiz's poetry, there is no mention of the occult. There is no mention of impressions, karma, past lives, or the winding or unwinding of anything. Hafiz knew that focusing on these processes represented the greatest danger to the purity of Sufism, as delving into them allowed for occult adepts to take control of Sufi orders. And although the great Sufi scholars have presented beautiful accounts of the towers of true Sufism, the reality is that the Sufi landscape is littered with the wrecks of innumerable orders destroyed by false murshids who took them over using hypnotism and the occult, fooling the adherents into believing that these low powers of spiritualism and insight into the, quote, spiritual process were genuine spirituality. Indeed, any sincere aspirant in the lands of Sufism was lucky if he got by these occult masters. So prevalent have they been in every age, and to the novice, so perfect was their mimicry of the real. It was and is only those with a long experience of true spirituality who can distinguish these false murshids and their occult powers from the few genuine masters and the simplicity of love for God. In general, Hafiz does not spend time railing against anyone, not even against the warlords who conquered Shiraz and slaughtered its inhabitants. So lost is he in the limitless ocean of God's love. With Sufi murshids, however, he makes an exception, as if to say that the slaughter of man's soul at the hands of a false master is far more dangerous than the slaughter of his physical form at the hands of a bloodthirsty warlord. And as is the case with any highly evolved soul, his venting is not out of anger, but out of concern for others who, as he once was, are in danger of being totally duped. Consider these couplets. Now, these are very literal translations. Come, Sufi, take off the cloak of hypocrisy and invalidate this hypocritical design. Open the door to the tavern, for I have gained no opening from the Sufi order. Believe it or not, I am telling you the truth. Hafiz is leaving the Sufi order for the tavern, Perhaps he has come to his senses from the intoxication of hypocrisy. What place of companionship does the stranger have in the gathering of the intimates? Hide the goblet, for the one with the Sufi cloak has arrived. Don't put love's secrets in the Sufi order. Magian wine must be with the Magi. Tell the Murshid not to admonish Hafiz for leaving the Sufi order. How can you bind the foot of one free who has already left? Hafiz, don't look for the pearl of love in the corner of the Sufi order. Step outside if you want to find it. The wise bird, not now, will fly near the door of the Sufi order, for in every Sufi gathering, the Murshid has laid a trap. Obviously, Hafiz was once a member of a Sufi order. Leaving it must have been traumatic for him. During his time, they were very much a part of Persian society and culture. He certainly had many friends within the order, and of course he had to admit that the great hopes he had in joining it were never going to be fulfilled while he was a member. The problem with the Sufi orders was essentially one of form and spirit. That is, rather than the spirit of a God-realized soul giving birth to an order, as was usually the case, the orders, once established, would try to generate and control spirituality and God realization. As Meher Baba says, this can never happen. And this is from the Charter, Sufism Reoriented. Privileges and prerogatives born of divine illumination and of realization of truth can never be subject to statutory provisions of any kind. Surprisingly, more often than not, the God-realized Murshid that the order had been founded around would pass his charge of God realization outside the order. Why these perfect masters did this, we can only speculate. The resulting vacuum often would be filled by someone not spiritually advanced. A process of investiture with successors called the passing of the khirka or Sufi cloak would follow, and this too allowed for the leadership of the orders to be assumed by personalities who had not obtained a high spiritual state. The assumption being that gaining the position of leader or murshid assured them spiritual advancement. It was the worship of the murshid rather than the worshiping of God that became the focus of the orders. And these leaders, in accepting this adulation, made it clear that they were not true spiritual guides. Over time, the order would spiral down into chaos. Moreover, rather than pursuing the effacement necessary for real spiritual advancement, these fake murshids had to posture that they had already attained it by indulging in the occult and, quote, learning the spiritual tricks, as the Indians say about the many fake gurus in that country. If they did not posture and maintain the ruse, they would be thrown out, having been exposed as fakes. All in all, they could be a very dangerous lot. As always with Hafiz, it is either the nothing of the world or the everything of God. In contrast to the murshids and the members of the Sufi orders misled by them, Hafiz placed the wrens and the dervishes. These are the true heroes of his poems. Arriving at an understanding of the meaning Hafiz ascribes to this first group, the wrens, may be as difficult at arriving at an understanding of true spirituality. Indeed, this term, more than any other, has been used to support the argument that Hafiz is writing as much about debauchery as he is about spirituality. For wrens are cunning rogues who hang out with dreg drinkers, mistakenly seen as the lowest drunks in the tavern. The term wren is perfect for the true spirituality of Hafiz, wherein great discretion and insight must be used to distinguish the real from the false and avoid the traps set by the false spiritual leaders. So taken as a whole, the term wren means someone shrewd, cunning, and insightful, but certainly immoral, con artists perhaps, that are always a few steps beyond any convention or any attempt to bring them to book. The meaning that Hafiz ascribes to them, however, expresses the essence of a spiritual aspirant, one who artfully skirts the pitfalls of the spiritual path and eludes the grasp of any false master. Excuse me. If there is any doubt about their true spiritual nature, it is removed by this couplet. Saki, to the desirelessness of the wrens give wine, so that one can hear the song of the independence of God. The high level of praise that Hafiz heaps on the wrens is shared with the dreg drinkers. In many ways, these two are one and the same, as this group also suggests a roguish, decrepit poverty with tinges of immorality, as they are seemingly too poor to drink anything other than the adulterated wine found in the bottom of a goblet. Indeed, this is how they are seen by most critics. However, when we consider that wine is a symbol of God's love, and the spiritual journey begins with one sip and progresses to higher and higher states as more of the goblet is drained, then those who have drunk all the way to the bottom must be highly advanced. Moreover, the poverty that the term connotes symbolizes the diminished worldly desires and attachments that accompanies a high state of spiritual advancement. The level of praise that Hafiz showers on the wrens and dreg drinkers is also shared by the dervishes, essentially being true Sufis, as they do not belong to a Sufi order. Hafiz has even composed a famous ghazal in their praise. Although all three of these groups are the heroes of Hafez's spirituality, the true men and women of the path, at no time, despite their high state of illumination, are they mentioned as spiritual guides. They are more companions, symbols of the striving and effacement and poverty of worldly desire that accompanies genuine spirituality. For Hafiz, as guides, they were of no use, for they had not reached the goal of union with God. As such, they were not trained in the art of kneading the wine of God's love with the dust of illusion to form an articulate tongue capable of expressing the mysteries of God. Meher Baba has this to say about them. Quote, Walis and peers of the fifth and sixth plane can raise you to a higher state with just one look. But that is not the perfect state, as these advanced souls are not perfect. At times, even perfect masters cannot help those caught in these nets. Therefore, except for the perfect ones, do not even be beguiled by the advanced souls of the fifth and sixth planes. Stick to the emperor and don't leave him for any reason. To move forward in our discussion and to establish the importance of selection in one's spiritual guide, it is helpful to quote this famous couplet. Last night, in the effulgence of pre-eternity, I saw angels knocking on the door of the tavern. Inside, they were kneading clay with the wine of God's love and casting it into the covenant's chalice, the form of man. As we know from Meher Baba, this kneading referred to in this couplet does not end with the soul's arrival in human form. It continues at the hands of the Master all the way to God realization, as is seen from this story from God Speaks. Here's the story. Hearing this, one of the disciples remarked, "Sire, if realization be so easy of attainment, then why is it that disciples are invariably made to undergo a long period of trial and austerities?" And reply, Gas Ali Shah, means he's a perfect master, related the following anecdote. A certain man, having 2 vessels encrusted with the rust and dirt of many years, decided to have them cleansed. He gave one vessel to a professional who promised to cleanse it in 40 days, and the other to a man who undertook the job in 1 day. The professional began to work at his vessel very scientifically. He subjected it to many different processes over a period of 40 days, and he made the vessel not only spick and span, but also a thing fit for use. The second man, who had promised to finish the job in 1 day, adopted the very drastic procedure of burning the vessel in a huge fire. This cleansed the vessel quickly and completely, but made it brittle and worthless. It can be seen, therefore, that although both the vessels were made clean, only that which underwent the lengthy process was of any use. This now brings us to the crux of the matter expressed in this couplet. Excuse me. Words in the beloved's mouth are like pearls, but Hāfez's speech is better. Words in the beloved's mouth are like pearls, but Hāfez's speech is better. And also this one. I as the white lily, and you, beloved, as the red rose. We were in pure companionship, and whatever was in your heart was spoken by my tongue. I as the white lily, and you, beloved, as the red rose. We were in pure companionship, and whatever was in your heart was spoken by my tongue. In Persian poetry, the lily represents the tongue of speech, as its petals are shaped like the tongue. The red rose, representing the beloved, does not have petals whose shape allow it to speak. Hence, the lily, here representing the tongue of the lover, speaks whatever is in the heart of the red rose, representing the beloved. This high, almost sacred conception of speech permeates Persian culture, fostered by Hāfez's incomparable description of it. There is an intuitive awareness among Persians that speech, poetic speech, has the power to transform and spiritually develop man's soul. Indeed, speech is so sacred in Persian culture that if there be any measure of the genuineness of a Sufi order, it is found in the quality and articulation of the speech of its adherents. Rudeness, especially to elders, for example, is a sure sign of an order's adulteration. Indeed, rudeness to elders is rarely found in Persian society. So deeply have the ethics of genuine Sufism permeated that culture, as the relationship between elders and the young is seen as a reflection of the master-disciple relationship. This is held as sacred, as it is well known that the true God-realized master, having obtained everything, has nothing to gain from his guidance of the disciple. The incomparable grace and beauty of genuine spirituality generates the grace of the manners and language that express it. This, more than anything else, is behind the development of Persian poetry, the most gracefully articulate language in the world. This conception that the disciple or lover becomes the tongue of the beloved is nowhere better expressed than Meher Baba's own silence. Indeed, the crafting of his mandali to speak for him illustrates his supreme, matchless artistry, expressing the essence of the two couplets quoted above. In this age, Meher Baba, a lover of literature, and especially Hafiz, crafted many articulate tongues among his close ones. His sister Mani, with a fifth-grade education, became his scribe to the West. Arich Jesawala, educated to the age of 19 in engineering, wrote a large section of God Speaks. Bao Kalchuri, a lawyer, and Francis Brabazon, a self-educated farmer and jack of all trades, are the only two poets in history on par with Hafiz. But returning to Hafiz, we know that his master was Attar, a perfect master, yet Hafiz never mentions him. Instead, he always refers to his master as Pir-e Magan, or the old Zoroastrian master. Hafiz has this to say about it: I am the disciple of the Zoroastrian master. Sheikh, don't find fault with me, for you made the promise, but he carried it out. The sheikh mentioned in this couplet refers to Hafiz's Muslim master, Attar. Some believe that the Zoroastrian master mentioned was a minor avataric incarnation named Pir-e Ateshband, or Pir-e Magan. He lived in the ruins of the fire temple in Roknabad of Shiraz. It is obvious that Hafiz's master, Attar, turned Hafiz over to the Zoroastrian master. Quite simply, this master was Meher Baba himself in a minor avataric form. That is, it is not just that Hafiz saw through everything and made it to the feet of the avatar after a tremendous struggle. It is also that Hafiz's master, Attar, himself a perfect master, knew that the avatar alone had the artistry and skill to knead the clay of Hafiz's being into a tongue of incomparable poetic beauty. On numerous occasions, Meher Baba said that this tongue is more articulate than his own. Indeed, the speech from this tongue is so beautiful, it has not only transformed the consciousness of the cultures of the East, but it also molded the avatar's own consciousness, first when he was a child as Marwan, and then as the master of masters. Excuse me. Avatar Meher Baba, the avatar and incomparable artistic master of this or any age. Thank you. Anyway, I'm all right. You have any questions or anything? Sorry about that. Yes? Oh, yeah, no, yeah, no, that's an extremely important couplet. Hafiz says, don't be caught, and I'm paraphrasing, don't be caught reading and studying in the season of the rose. Make the best of the companionship of the beloved at this time. And that's really important for education in America now, because they think that the development of intelligence is through doing more and more and more studying, when in Hāfez, it generates out of the beauty of nature. And that's where natural intelligence and God's beauty is found and forms intelligence. That's extremely important, yeah.
Is that pretty much the standard interpretation?
That's Hāfez's interpretation. It's not mine. It just set me, what it did when I'm working on a book on Hāfez, and I actually wasn't going to include any of this in it because it's a bit of a sidetrack from the bent that I had. But when I, again, was asked to speak here,
Can you
and
repeat
I
the
looked
question,
at what he
Peter?
said about Sufism. Oh, I'm sorry. The question is the interpretation of Sufism, that true Sufism is outside of the orders, is that one that's generally held? And my answer is, I don't think so. I don't think people really understand that. And in general, people don't read Hāfez that closely, so they don't know what he says about it. But when I saw what he said about it, and I was asked to speak at this conference, I thought I would put this together and present his, Baba calls him the true Sufi, and this is what he says. And again, these are very literal translations that I presented.
This is kind of cutting edge of following the ground here.
This is the cutting edge of how?
You're not sure that this is generally shared, is it?
No, yeah, Dick's question is that this interpretation is not generally known. And I would say, I mean, it goes much further than that with Hāfez. Most people think he's writing about wine, women, and song, or wine, women, and song, and God. Now, he has this couplet where he kisses the beloved's lips. Now, if you read Hāfez closely, when he kisses the beloved's lips, that means basically God realization. So if it's a double meaning, that means he's going to engage in foreplay now while he's getting God realized. So you see how absurd it is. Unless that actually happens, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it happens. You're welcome. Yeah, sure.
Is it not true that in Hafiz's time there were numerous Sufi orders, and that it would represent something on the order of the church today? I mean, they were outside of the mosque, but many people were members of Sufi orders. So it was very common.
That's
as
right.
Common as going to church is now.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that common, but there was, as far as I know, there were the blue-robed ones who were the Sufis of his time who were seen as hypocrites. Now, what happened, as far as I know, there is Ruzbahan Balkli, who was either a perfect master or an illumined saint who wrote beautiful visions, and an order grew up around him. He was the disciple of Shibli, who was the disciple of Junaid, who were people who Baba talked about. And that order became corrupt very quickly. And by the time Hāfez came along, it was totally corrupted. And that's probably Ruzbahan's, they call him Ruzbahaniyat. Hāfez was probably a member of that order for a while and found it to be completely corrupt. Yeah. Oh, I can tell you, and Mara also knows some things. The question is, do I know about the Sufi orders today? I do know a number of Baba lovers in Iran who, as part of their search for Meher Baba, went around to the Sufi orders. And they said all of them were corrupt, except they found this one guy, this one murshid who they thought was genuine. There was something about him they liked. And he pulled him aside and said, he's come again. His name is Meher Baba. Yes. Yeah.
What about the United States?
No, this was in Iran. And I mean, and you know, oh God, I wouldn't go near any of them in the United States. I mean, if you want to, go ahead.
What did corruption look like back then?
Well, okay, this is as I see it, having read into this more, and I started reading about the occult, and it seems to me that the occult is the perfect mimicry of genuine spirituality. That they're just, it's like, you know, there's two types of snakes, a coral snake, which is the poisonous one, and there's a scarlet king snake, which is the harmless one that mimics it. And they're very hard to tell apart. And the occult is the perfect mimic of true spirituality. And true spirituality in any age is very rare. As we know that from Bob, it's very few souls in any age who are ready for true spirituality. So most of the orders have been involved with the occult. In fact, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, they all come from occult Sufi orders. Yeah, if you read, it's fascinating. And then those have come into the West, with the Nazis, and even Skull and Bones at Yale, who produced some of our sterling presidents. You know, it's just it's all over the place. So it's Anyway, not surprising. Yes. Yeah, you.
The reference to minor incarnation of the Avatar.
Yeah.
In that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get that?
I made it up. I didn't know what to do, so I thought this looks good. No, Marinosh McPherson. She was born in Iran. She was very close with Esfandiar Visali. She told me, I post stuff on Facebook, and she put this on Facebook, and I had written an article about it from The Glow some years ago, but I didn't know who the guy was. And she said Esfandiar Visali wrote it out and signed it and gave it to her and said, this was Hafiz's master. And where he got it from, I don't know. Yeah, Madeline?
Do you know that story about Carl Ernst, a Persian scholar, who went to Iran? He was invited by the Persian government.
Yes, I know that story. Tell us the story. Okay. Pardon? Oh, yeah. Carl Ernst, who actually I went to school with, who's an old-time Baba lover and went to school out here at one point, and is a Sufi. His book on Sufism, by the way, is very, very good, if you want to read a good book on Sufism. He went to Iran, and it was a big deal because he was sort of part of a first group of American scholars back in, and the guy who was taking them around was a Baba lover. He didn't know it. Yeah, somehow then they realized it. Also, the two current greatest scholars of Sufism, Persian scholars of Sufism, are both Baba lovers. Yeah.
So the story that I heard from Carl was they were in a Hafiz's tomb, and there was a little guy.
Come up to the mic so that everybody can hear.
If you ask a question.
So they were in Hafiz's tomb, and there was a Persian guy there, and he was conducting this tomb for these visitors, august academic visitors, and he was reciting some things in Persian probably, and then he said in English, "I was this one, I was that one, and now I am Meher Baba," in Hafiz's tomb. And Carl went, whoa, and connected with the guy and found out he had been in the Prem ashram.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
So that's
great.
what Carl told us.
Great. What do you want to do now? Yeah.
And the education of young people. And I'm thinking, I was reading the diary of Kayla Choi on the internet.
Yes.
And for somebody who was unschooled, I mean, that child's writings are so deeply evocative of that kind of unlearning, if you like.
Yes.
I mean, she only had to have learned that intuitively, and Baba said we are now in the age of intuition. So I was just thinking about that when we told that
What this isn't, see, there's so many things in Hafiz that are just so right on. The everything and the nothing is poetically presented in Hafiz beautifully. Just so many things. It's incredible.
I'd like to just say, yeah, if you have comments or questions, please come up to the mic. Thank you.
Yeah, go.
I think it's in the discourses. It may be in, I can't remember if it's God speaks to the discourses.
Speak to the mic.
Baba talks about the case of Baba Farid Ganji Shakar, who was the true, he took the true charge, and he went off into the mountains, and where their order went ended up in Delhi, which is hundreds of years later is this huge thing in Delhi.
Yeah, that's a Chishti master.
And that's where Rabia Martin went to have them say that she was okay, and then Ghani told her that was worthless.
Right. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I just want to say, I think like the other presenters here, when I felt Baba sort of nudging me to get involved in this conference, I really thought, yeah, it might be a good idea to review some of this material. And in the course of doing my own research, I found that I felt Sufism Reoriented was doing three things. One, they were writing their own history from Meher Baba's words. Two, they really were not familiar with Meher Baba's ways, which I think are extremely important because I feel Meher Baba's ways are the one thing which is going to preserve the legacy of the direct relationship between all of us and him, as that is the essence of his ways. And three is they really do not know the history of Sufism, and they would refer to it over and over again in the tapes and elsewhere. And just to give you two examples, one, Meher Baba's made it very clear that during the Avataric age, which is still now, the perfect masters do not function. He has taken all of their charge, and I have also heard from members of Sufism Reoriented that Jim Mackay is Khizr, and that Ivy Deuce said that. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I've heard that, but I would just like to say that Khizr is never in a specific human form. He is the guardian of wayfarers. He is the guardian of wayfarers, and he appears in numerous forms according to the needs and the tradition that disciples are in at different places all over the world. So that is not true. Anyway, I thought I'd read a few just quick. I translate couplets pretty much, so I just thought I'd read a few, if you like. Yeah. If you would like to fill the world with beauty eternally, ask the morning breeze to lift for a moment the veil from your face. If you would like to fill the world with beauty eternally, ask the morning breeze to lift for a moment the veil from your face. Although the intoxication of love ruined me, the foundation of my existence and that ruin flourishes. Although the intoxication of love ruined me, the foundation of my existence and that ruin flourishes. Now, in Persian, the third person singular can be he, she, or it. So, and that's, you know, the people who think that Hafiz is writing about women the same time he's writing about God. Oh, it can be she, it can be he. So, you can see the trouble you would get into with this couplet if it was she. This is capital H. Until he takes me to his lips like a reed, all of the advice of the world passes by my ears like the wind. Until he takes me to his lips like a reed, All of the advice of the world passes by my ears like the wind. Now you can imagine what a mess the guy would be in if it was a she.
Is that a reed?
Yeah, reed. Yeah, flute. I'm sorry. Let me see. This is really cool. See, Hafiz comes up with these really just amazing, pithy things. Make the best of this opportunity of companionship, for on our two roads to the goal, there's the chance we won't be able to meet again. Make the best of this opportunity of companionship, for on our two roads to the goal, there's the chance we won't be able to meet again. If one night with your cheek you light my seclusion, I will raise my head like dawn on the horizons of the world. If one night with your cheek you light my seclusion, I will raise my head like dawn on the horizons of the world. Anyway, those are some samples. Jai Baba. Thank you.